Today we're going to talk about a stock that we really like and that we're going to build a pretty significant position of in the Macro Ops portfolio. So those of you that joined the Macro Ops Collective recently, welcome. It's great to have you on board. You're going to hear a lot about this stock in the coming months. Now, of course, when we're talking about buying stocks, there's a very specific way that we're doing it considering the type of market that we're in. This is obviously not the type of market where you want to blindly go long stocks. If you do, you're just going to get hurt, even if the stock is really great. So fair warning, when we're talking about these stocks, we're talking about adding them to our watch list and slowly building a position. And we've talked about this before in previous videos, right? The way we do it is slowly layer in. So we put on a little bit of money and kind of test the water, see where the market is at. And as the position moves in our favor, we continue to add more. That's the safe way to get into a stock in normal times, and especially in a bear market like the one we're in right now. So that's my warning. Be careful and follow your strategy. If your strategy doesn't tell you it's time to buy yet, then just put this on your watch list. But the company that we're talking about is Nerdy. And now I'm kind of offended as I watch these pictures flash by because every single person has glasses. What are they trying to say? I have glasses too. But Nerdy is an online education platform. It's basically tutoring. So it's a curated platform for live online learning, where they leverage technology and AI to deliver personalized live learning at scale. Live learning, that's the key here. That's what makes it different from every other offering. Now let's jump into the details here with our research report from Macro Ops, our global macro research and consulting firm. So the ticker symbol for Nerdy is NRDY. So Nerdy, as we said, is a digital learning marketplace that provides live online tutoring to students or professionals across 3,000 subjects. So there's a lot of different tutoring options you could choose, including one-on-one, small groups, or large class formats. So the good thing about Nerdy is that they have a virtuous cycle working for the company, because the more students they use the platform, the better tutors the platform gets. And because of its AI matching technology, which is another key in this platform, it matches students with tutors perfectly. And you'll see a little bit more about how it does that in a second. But if the tutors are really happy because they're getting the kind of students that they like, and the students are really happy because they're getting a tutor that can actually help them, you get really great feedback on both sides, and more tutors want to come and more students want to come, and it's a virtuous loop. And that's really what you want in a business, because you're going to make a lot more money. So again, the company leverages machine learning to most efficiently match the right tutor with the right student. And that dramatically improves outcomes for both tutors and learners. And over time, this data enables Nerdy to create a more personalized learning experience and longer lifetime values from both sides of his marketplace. So nowadays, a tutoring company, that's not interesting. But a tutoring company with AI learning and also live tutoring, that's more interesting. And that's what we got with Nerdy. So direct-to-consumer education, which is what we're talking about right here, is a $62 billion business. And Nerdy is just in the early stages of its potential revenue and profit. So like we said, Nerdy is live tutoring, right? Well, less than 10% of learners think that pre-recorded learning is as good as live learning. So yeah, everyone likes live learning, which is what Nerdy gives. But all of Nerdy's competitors only offer pre-recorded material. So they have a huge advantage. Now, the story of Nerdy is pretty cool because it started with a 21-year-old kid who turned $1,000 of his parents' money into a $1.7 billion company. So Nerdy was started by this guy, Chuck. And Chuck is a ginger investment banker. That's what he ended up becoming. But in his junior year of college, Chuck here could not pass calculus. And I don't blame him. I mean, I'm Indian and I couldn't pass college calculus. I was smart and did it in high school with the AP test. That's where it was easier. But Chuck here was struggling and he couldn't find a good tutor. So he got $1,000 from his parents and created a 3-page website to fix his tutoring problem. And now it's the largest online tutoring and learning platform in the US. And Chuck actually bootstrapped this business and refused to take outside capital until 2015, 8 years after its launch. Instead, he worked full-time in investment banking and venture capital to finance the company, using weekends and weeknights to improve the product. This is extremely hard to believe because I'm pretty sure you don't have weekends and weeknights in investment banking. At least my brother doesn't. And actually, one of my friends is named Chuck and he's in investment banking. He doesn't have those either. So I don't know where this Chuck was working, but nonetheless, it's pretty impressive. In the early days of the company, Chuck used to do everything himself. So he would do things that don't scale. So for example, he would personally interview and hand grade assessment exams for every tutor that he put on the platform. He was doing that all himself. This is on the weeknights and weekends. And not only that, but he would take learners that were coming on the platform and hand match them with the tutors that he interviewed. Now, obviously that takes a ton of time, which is why eventually he knew, hey, I have to invest in the technology to make this automatic. Hence the AI and machine learning that now does all of it. And this is important, the CEO doing things in the beginning that didn't scale, because he understands what the marketplace is like. That's why he's able to navigate through it. And that's because he has that hands-on experience. And not only that, but most people don't want to do things that don't scale. I'm one of them. I hate doing things that don't scale. I'm too lazy, I guess. But the benefit, again, for someone like Chuck is they really understand what's going on. And hard work is what gets that flywheel spinning. That's how his company started to take off. And then you add in the stuff for the scale. But doing things that don't scale can be very, very effective in the early days. So Nerdy operates a two-sided marketplace, right? You got the tutors on the one side and then 87,000 students on the other. So the company makes money by selling hour packages or even monthly subscriptions. And then their margins are based off how much they have to pay their tutors and their technology costs. And they keep the rest. So there's a few things that make Nerdy so good and so competitive. First is the quality of their tutors. So the company has a lot of assessments that each tutor has to take to even get on the platform. And then the AI models actually identify and retain the superior ones. And the ones that are not good just churn out. So over time, they're constantly curating their inventory of experts so that you always have the best people on the platform. And it's all done by AI. Makes me think if you have tutors on that platform fighting against some algorithm, kind of like we all do on YouTube. It's kind of sad because they say that gives the best result, right? You have machine learning and AI matching the best content or tutors with the people, what they really want. But I know on YouTube what happens is that an AI can radicalize you because you fall down a rabbit hole of stuff that it keeps feeding you more and more. And before you know it, you want to rush the capital. But I'm sure that's not what happens in Nerdy. All algorithms are slightly different. And where it is right now, the matching works way better than the open marketplace. So a lot of people think an open marketplace is best because you want the learners to be able to pick from a roster of tutors. But in fact, a matching process may indeed be a lot better because if you're a parent, you don't want to spend so much time trying to find the best tutor for your kid. That's the hardest part, right? If you have a platform that automatically does it for you successfully, then of course that's a huge advantage. You don't want the open marketplace. So here's an example of how the matching takes place. Like this little girl, she's an introvert and has low motivation. So she goes with this tutor. This guy's an extrovert with a 3.9 GPA and high motivation. He goes with this tutor. So everyone's getting matched based off their specific needs and the parents don't have to worry about it. And of course, another benefit of all this is total convenience because it's all online, right? So a tutor can come from anywhere across the world and students can learn from anywhere across the world at any time they want. So the system that they built is really working. The customer satisfaction is through the roof. They have 4.9 stars on Trustpilot, and that's out of 5, so that's pretty good. If it was out of 10, I wouldn't be telling you about it. We wouldn't be investing in this company either. So their growth metrics have been great too because again, their system is working. So active learners have grown by 56%. Online sessions are up 57%. And active experts, which are the tutors, have increased by 37%. But what about the competition? Because there's tons of these tutoring services, right? Well, here's the thing. Nerdy is the only company doing live learning online. The rest of them are doing recorded stuff like Coursera, Udemy, Duolingo. Or you got stuff that's offline like Sylvan Learning, Kaplan. Where is Kumon on here? All my immigrant children know Kumon, right? Where you become a math genius? I never went. And that's why I struggled with calculus. I'm a bad Indian. So a 2020 study revealed that less than 10% of learners like pre-recorded stuff because no one pays attention. Also, learners preferred one-on-one live tutoring over practice exams, and especially over chatbot support. Now, the market is big enough for all these people to compete, but live online tutoring is the preferred method for everyone. And another benefit of Nerdy, because it's online and live, so before, if you wanted live, you had to go to one of these places. But going to one of these places, the tutor that you're going to get is pretty limited to where you live. It's like who works there? Just a handful of people. Where Nerdy, you have a much bigger selection from all over the world. So that's another advantage right there. Another thing that Nerdy actually does is make this live tutoring online affordable. So one huge space that they're attacking is public schools. So schools are able to purchase a fixed number of tutoring hours per student from Nerdy. And if a teacher thinks a student needs additional tutoring, she can schedule that student for X hours with a Nerdy tutor. And the student receives that at no cost, while the teacher doesn't have to worry about that student falling behind in class. And the convenience of it really works because after school, what happens? weekends. Most people have practice or something, right? Well, if they got to go home and get ready for it, they could do the online tutoring in that time. They don't have to be in the school. They can be wherever and do it. So the convenience is way better with online live tutoring versus having to be at the physical location. And think about if Nerdy can be used at schools across America, how much money is that? It's a huge market. Like we said, direct-to-consumer education is a $62 billion addressable market. But that's just the beginning, because global learning is a $160 billion plus industry. And it's at the inflection point of the S-curve digital adoption, meaning adoption is about to explode. And it's happening faster than previous online adoptions like e-commerce. So for example, in 2004, e-commerce comprised of 2.2% of US commerce. And by 2019, 15 years later, it was 11%. But if we look at global learning, in 2019, digital was 2.3%, but by 2026, it will be 11%. That's 8 years faster than e-commerce. It's getting adopted real quick. And we're seeing this in data too. 73% of learners are more likely to use online learning than a year ago. And 92% of learners plan to use some form of digital learning services going forward. It's interesting because I've been hearing a lot about this, especially with all the shootings going on at these schools. People are looking for alternatives. And online learning is working out way better for a lot of people. I recently learned about these high school students who haven't had an actual teacher since maybe the 5th grade or something. And they were using some digital learning system that again is like AI. Basically that program adjusts to that student's speed. So whatever they're lacking on, they focus on that, and it's very dynamic. And there's no teacher involved. And those 2 kids are now like the top in the country. So the idea of digital learning is becoming more and more attractive to people. Now, of course, this is still more attractive to people with money. Like homeschooling. Who gets homeschooled? People with money get homeschooled because they actually have a decent, stable house that they could stay in during the day. But this is where it starts, right? Eventually it will move to everyone. At least we could hope. But there's definitely very interesting things happening here in the educational space. And Nerdy is one of those offerings that we could actually invest in. And what we're envisioning is a world where Nerdy is worth between $6 billion and $11.75 billion. And that's 18 times greater than today's price, assuming only average industry growth rates. So even if Nerdy wasn't all that. And the company checks off nearly every box we want on a long-term investment. It has a great leader. It's run by a founder CEO, which is always nice because they have a ton of skin in the game. He's bought shares every day for the last month and a half. That's our buddy Chuck right here. Been in it since day one. Never gonna quit. There's a massive market opportunity. Global learning is an enormous market in the early innings of digital adaptation. Nerdy has a differentiated product because they're the only live online learning people. And that creates a much better outcome for everybody. And they're trading at a very discounted price right now. So we're going to put on a starter position in this in the coming weeks, and we're going to look to build Nerdy into a high conviction 10% plus position. Now again, if you look at the chart here, it doesn't look so hot. And that's why we're getting a real deal on it, because the market isn't evaluating this properly, but also we're in a bear market. So again, depending on your strategy, be very careful how you enter this thing. In our case, we're gonna layer in slowly. In your case, it might be just the stock that you put on your watch list. Either way, follow your strategy, don't break it. And again, we're in a bear market, right? And we got Stanley Druckenmiller calling for a seriously bad recession next year. If you haven't watched that video we made about it, click right here. Druck, who's the GOAT of investing, did an interview that was extremely interesting, and we break it down right here. So click that video, and I will see you there.